Hello everyone and welcome back, or welcome to Grudgehammer, because this is going on a brand new channel. I have decided to do some painting tutorials, and the best way to start off is actually with a panic unit that I have to sort out. See, I've signed up to a tournament where I'm going to be taking Orcs and Goblins, not Troll Horde and not my Savage Orc list, but rather focusing on normal Orcs. The problem is, the army's not ready. Now I do have a unit that I have to prep up, which is going to be an MSU, multiple small unit army. It's a squad of 8, and then I decided, well, it might be a good idea to do a painting tutorial showcasing how I paint these up so quickly, as, yeah, you know, people like to paint up Orcs and Goblins and stuff like that. Let's just jump right in, because there is a lot to talk about. There's only going to be 12 paints, and one of them is my base, so let's jump in. So here we have 8 orcs with additional hand weapons, just a very small unit. I've got them sprayed up in white using White Scar, but if you want to use other brands, be them cheaper or different tones, that's perfectly fine. I go for a very brilliant white just so I can keep my models a little bit brighter and then dirt them up as I go from there. The aim is 8 minis in an hour. I'm going to be pretty quick, mostly because I don't really care too much about these units. I want them to look decent, but they're not going to be a centerpiece unit. And that's a very important thing to remember about the old world. You don't have to make all the base units look amazing, especially as they're going to be dying in droves. And the plan here is I'm going to be using just a few paints. It's only around 12. The idea here is quick, fast, and easy. As long as they look decent to be able to field, that's the most important thing. Don't you worry, all the paints used will be mentioned in their respective sections and also listed in the description below. So I'm going to start off with Agrax Earthshade, and the idea here is to wash the whole model all over. Now, this can vary depending on what you want in terms of overall tone, but the reason why I do this is to, one, pick out all the details, especially with these older models, because, dear viewer, these models particularly are the ones from the 5th edition start box that I purchased when I was a small child. They have not aged very well and they've had a little bit of damage, so this does help just kind of pick out all the raised areas. And 2, it does mean that you can spray your models in white and then just kind of go with the tone that you want with your specific shade. If you want to go darker, use Nuln Oil. If you want to go brighter, just use Reikland Flashshade. This is a method I've been using since contrast paints came out, a little bit after at least, and it's worked out very well. You've seen some of my models in the main channel and it's all using this method. You might get a little bit of pooling, try to avoid that, but in most cases it will just go into the darker recesses, which is going to help when you start putting in the greens and the rest of the colors. Mostly this is going to be very quick, and if you line them up properly, I didn't do that here because obviously the camera setup is quite new and I'm trying to get used to it, which is very weird for me. If you line them up properly, by the time that you're on the last one, yeah, you can start already getting into the next method. This method will also dramatically increase your batch painting, but as you can see, they're all nice and browned up. There are some areas which the shade is lighter, and I've obviously missed out on the weapons a little bit, because that's going to be metallic paints and that's going to go over it. So this is where the fun begins. So when we start working on miniatures, I like to work bottom upwards. So Black Templar coming in to do the boots on all of these units, and later I'll decide to do it on the chest pieces too on some of the models. I just haven't really decided as I started painting these how I was going to paint up this unit. It wasn't going to look like my other orcs, because the majority of my orcs painted are savage orcs and they wear no armor, because real orcs fight naked. You have to be a bit careful with Black Templar because it can stain, but in most cases, if you've realized that you've gone over an area that you don't want to, hit it with a wet brush and just keep hitting it with water until the black starts to fade to a bit of a grey, more or less in the consistency of a Nuln Oil shade. Blood Angels Red coming in for the trousers. I wanted something a little bit colourful because mostly these are going to be kind of dark. It's going to go all over the trousers. Keep in mind that there's certain areas where it's just a strap which is going to be leather, and some of these orcs from the classic kit, which is now on sale once again, which, I mean, wow, weird. They are not wearing trousers. In fact, they're just wearing kind of like an orcish skirt. You can do whatever you want in terms of color. I've seen a lot of people doing multicolored orcs in terms of clothing just to have a bit of a faction feel. But red is pretty classic when it comes to greenskins and is represented by the bloody tusks near Bretonia. You will notice here I am actually separating the models and doing a conga line, and that way the one that was done first will then be able to be painted as soon as all of these are done. I'm trying to be as quick as I can here. Going back to Black Templar, this is where I decided that I wanted the chest piece to be black to match with the boots. The skirts, if any had them, would also be black too. I should have thought about this in the past, but I figured, you know, black and red would work out quite well in nice contrast to my very green and also sometimes blue Savage Orcs. It's a nice little difference because I'm going to be working on a lot of green skins and I want to have different forces of green skins to be represented all around. Again, with the black, you have to be careful because it can stain quite heavily. This is also a thing with Blood Angels Red. Very high pigment contrast paints. Even I'm prone to mistakes, and this happens because I'm trying to be painting quickly, or I've got two cats that like to jump on the table. Don't you worry about that. If you've got some mistakes, some thin down Corax, just to get rid of a lot of the pigment would work out quite well. You don't have to be very heavy with this. Thin it down. If you have a separate pot, put it in there and just have a really thin down consistency, and that will just help you sort out through those mistakes. Remember, we're all human. These things happen. Orc flesh now. This one you'll be using heavily because it's going on the arms, the faces, the hands, sometimes legs, basically anywhere that orc flesh is going to be. This is a fantastic paint and pairs very, very nicely with Agrax Earthshade to be able to give you a very dark tone in certain areas where the recesses are, but still kind of brighter where the light will shine onto it. When it comes to these orcs, it'll be a little bit finicky when trying to get into the neck, mostly because their heads and their helmets are quite large, but it shouldn't be too much of an issue if you're just a little bit patient. When it comes to the face, keep a little bit of care when you're going around the mouth, as you will be dealing with teeth and you'll want to paint those a different color a little bit later. But again, if there's an issue, just use a bit of Corax and you should be fine. Snakebite leather has become one of my favorite contrast paints. It's going to be used here too. This will be for the belts, for the straps, for anything like bags, and also there are a few wrist guards that some of the orcs wear that are very clearly leather and not actually mail or any form of metals. So this is a pretty good paint for that. If you've got these orcs, by the way, you might notice a bunch of chest plates that you could either put leather behind it or use black Templar. It does depend on what you want on the style. It's just these models are kind of goofy looking in certain parts. They're great because orcs have always aged very well, but certain proportions have always been a bit odd. Wildwood next for the wooden handles, because a lot of these orcs do have wooden handles on their weapons, and Wildwood has that real nice barky feel to it. You don't want it to look like refined wood. At the end of the day, these are orcs. They're basically putting their weapons together with duct tape and dreams. It's not really professional forged stuff, so this works out quite well. I'm also using Wildwood for the shriveled heads and decapitated heads that they've got there. Some of them have got it on the side. It's just to give them some nice hair color. You can use anything that you want if you want to make them blonde or whatever. You will also notice, by the way, that some of these orcs are using helmets from like orc kits from way back in the day. And I mean like orc kits from 40k. And that's because, well, you know, these models have been in my mother's loft for years. And when she found them, I'm like, okay, I'm going to get these painted up. It all came with a move with me and I'm pretty happy about that. All my classics. I even found my original painted Space Marines and no, you can't see them. Leadbelcher, everyone's favourite paint. There's naturally a lot of metal when it comes to these orcs, and I'm just going to be using Leadbelcher because, while I would use a lot of different silvers when it comes to different like units, Empire, Cafe or whatever, when it comes to the orcs, it's going to be scrap metal. I rather just go flat Leadbelcher. So helmets, chest pieces where it comes, certain iconography around the body. It's pretty easy to just pinpoint what's going to be Leadbelcher. You can use any metallic you like. At the end of the day, it depends on what you want. But Leadbelcher has been the pinnacle of metal paints for me for many, many years now. I'm mostly focusing on contrast paints, but it's because the contrast paint method works out quite well. Skeletal Horde here with the teeth and also the faces for the decapitated heads, because I've already got Agrax on it, so Gulliman flesh might make it a bit too dark, whereas you still want it pale. You know, these heads have been bloodlust for a while. Basically, whatever's bone, you put some bone on it. Some of these orcs do have some teeth and stuff on the body. It's just very hard to tell. Again, the pre-shading helps incredibly well here to make sure that you can pick out all the different details. The fingernails too, but I didn't really hit the fingernails too much. It's details that I don't really care about too much, especially when this unit is only going to be there for a tournament, and that's likely going to be it. The main thing is battle ready, where it's a 3 color minimum. There's more than 3 colors here, much more. And again, basic line troopers don't have to look as good as your characters. Always remember that. You shouldn't stress about your army. Get them on the field, get them painted, have some fun. Liquid Talon coming in with Nuln Oil, so yeah, all over the model. Make them dirty. These are Warhammer orcs. They don't have to look pristine. You want them to look filthy. This is like a grimdark setting. I always find it a bit weird when everyone tries to make their models look really, really clean, like if they haven't been walking across like the Badlands or the River Stirland or whatever. There is filth, the same thing that goes in 40k. I like my models to look like they've been through some warfare. And I always like a little bit of dirt. Now, remember that the Nuln Oil nowadays is more like a contrast paint, so make sure that it doesn't pool up. Just keep going through the model, checking, because you don't want mistakes happening here, but this is an easy process. It's literally just giving them a bath. This will also help if you've got any white spots or anything that the contrast paints are a bit too thin. You'll want to hit that just to make sure that it darkens up a little bit. After the models are sufficiently dirtied up, I want to do the eyes for the orcs. I normally give them about red eyes. I normally do this after the shade, so like nothing darkens it too much, but you can do that prior. I just know that I can be a bit heavy-handed with the brush sometimes, so I want to avoid that. Here, very simple. Basically, the models are done after that, barring obviously the basing, which I forgot to buy some basing. Yeah, it does happen. But it doesn't really matter about the basing because it depends on what you want for your armies. I'm just going to hit this with some Steel Legion Drab, wait up, and then I'm going to be going down to the shop soon to do a massive shop where I will then get the basing materials that I need so I can have my army looking coherent, because I do like all the basing to look as coherent as possible. But 8 models in a little under an hour. This did take me a little bit longer though, because I did have the camera in front and I'm not used to that. So I think I could go faster. This is a learning curve. It's like one of my first few videos for painting. But yeah, there's going to be more. There's going to be a lot more. They're not based, but here you have 8 orcs ready to join the fray. I'm going to be putting some sand down and just putting some shrubbery, but that's later down the line. I'll do a video regarding that as time progresses, and I'm also going to spray up the movement tray because I've been spraying up the movement trays for each of the different armies for coherency. I think they look pretty fine. I could have done a little bit more with the silvers, I think, but yeah. One-off unit. Really, it's here just to exist. I need to get a stabilizer that actually works and not when it wants to. So yeah, other than that, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Let's start a bit of a discussion. Thank you for watching. This is going to be a brand new journey, but I'm trying to get my full collection done, and it's going to take a while. I'm really at that point where I just want to finish up my pile of shame. Have a good one, guys, and I'll leave you a little clip at the end. I am trying to record, but apparently the cat says no, which is pretty annoying.